Hey, what's up everyone? Merry Christmas! Finally we're here. And just like the last two Christmases, we're gonna read from John 1 to end this whole series off. John 1, 1 through 14. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. He was in the beginning with God. And all things came into being through him, and without him not one thing came into being. What has come into being in him was life, and the life was the light of all people. The light shines in the darkness, and the darkness did not overcome it. There was a man sent from God whose name was John. He came as a witness to testify to the light so that all might believe through him. He himself was not the light, but he came to testify to the light. The true light which enlightens everyone was coming into the world. He was in the world, and yet the world came into being through him, yet the world did not know him. He came to what was his own, and his own people did not accept him. But to all who received him, who believed in his name, he gave power to become children of God, who were born not of blood, or of the will of the flesh, or of the will of man, but of God. And the Word became flesh and lived among us. And we have seen his glory, the glory as of a Father's only Son, full of grace and truth. Epic, classic, legendary text that gets read a lot. And after this passage, the Gospel of John just goes straight into the adult life of Jesus. And compared to the other Gospels and their introductions, only Matthew and Luke have birth stories, and Mark also starts off with the adult life of Jesus. But to start your whole gospel off with this, which is way more esoteric, cosmic, ethereal, feels not as fleshy and bodily as the other gospels. But John is trying to say this large, cosmic, eternal Christ, Word, is becoming flesh. It's like John has to start out way zoomed out. As zoomed out as you possibly can from the beginning of time. And he's saying all of that has been here since the very beginning is becoming flesh. The Word becomes flesh and lives among us. Or I like the Message translation of that verse. It says, the Word became flesh and moved into the neighborhood. That's the incarnation. Becoming carnal. That's what that word means. Becoming bodily, flesh. But what I love about the incarnation is that it's not just about becoming flesh in this one guy, Jesus, that lived 2,000 years ago, and then that's it. And then we all just got to think back then and think, oh man, I wish I was there because that was so amazing. And now we just got to talk about it all the time and talk about how amazing it was and just be grateful for it. Rather, the incarnation is about the Word becoming flesh continually. We first experience it through Jesus, but then the incarnation just keeps going. That's why Jesus' first followers call themselves the body of Christ, or the body of the Messiah, or you can even, using this language, call them the body of the Word. The incarnation was not a one-time event, it's an ongoing process. And we can think and theorize and come up with these brilliant conceptualizations in order to express the incarnation. But ultimately, the incarnation is something that is to be experienced through embodying this eternal Word yourself, through becoming enfleshed the way that Jesus of Nazareth was. That's why throughout Jesus' whole ministry, he's teaching his disciples to do the things that he's doing. He's not getting people to gather around him and worship him and be impressed by him and adore him. He's, whoever is willing to follow him, getting them to do what he does. And then later in the Gospel of John, he even tells one of the disciples, y'all will do greater things than me. And I say y'all there because the word you'll find there is you. You will do greater things than me. He's responding to an individual. But if we look at the Greek there, that word used for you is the plural you. In modern English, it's just the same. Singular and plural you is just you. But it's actually Jesus using the plural when talking to this individual, because it's probably the writer making Jesus use a plural, because the writer is trying to get Jesus to say this to the person he's talking to and everyone reading the text or hearing the text. You all will do greater things than me. Remembering Christ is not just about having a good memory and thinking about all of the things that we read about Jesus doing. It's about remembering, like remembering something together, remembering Christ in the world. And this was a radical message. The 2nd century Roman historian Celsus wrote about the Christian movement, and he wrote about these claims about Jesus coming from a miraculous birth, and he didn't believe it. And Celsus said it was absurd. But here's the thing. He didn't say it was absurd because he just didn't believe that miraculous births happened. He did believe miraculous births happened, but only for kings and rulers. People like Augustus Caesar, who also had a miraculous birth story told about him. His mother, Asia, fell asleep in a temple for Apollo, and while she was asleep, Apollo made himself into a snake and went up into her, and then she woke up the next day and she was pregnant with Augustus. Many rulers, heroes, warriors, kings had miraculous birth stories told about them. Jesus definitely wasn't the first. And sometimes people like to use that fact to say, see, it's all made up. See, the Romans did this whole conspiracy where they made up Jesus using other people's stories in order to manipulate people. When actually, the first followers of Jesus used this model of a miraculous birth story in order to communicate something subversive about Jesus compared to the message that were in all these other miraculous birth stories. Because the message in all the other miraculous birth stories was that this guy is special and he should be worshipped. But in this miraculous birth story, it says something about everyone else, about all the poor and powerless people. Because the reason Celsus didn't believe that the miraculous birth story of Jesus was true and he called it absurd was because it was being told about someone as poor and powerless as Jesus. Being born as someone as poor and powerless as Mary. And this miraculous birth story also talked about Christ becoming flesh within the body of Christ, within more people than just Jesus. So I'm sure Celsus didn't understand that part, but it was actually way more absurd than he even realized. Compared to all the other miraculous birth stories out there, this miraculous birth story was about God becoming embodied in the poor and powerless Jesus and continuing to become embodied within everyone else. The Word becomes flesh, all flesh. Not just the powerful, not just the rich, not just the heroes, not just the warriors. And it also sends this unique message that the way God gets things done in the world is through bodies. God's hands and feet in the world are our hands and feet in this world, coming together as the body of God, the body of Christ, the body of the Word. And that, honestly, keeps Christianity really inspiring for me, which is why I've loved doing these Advent and Christmas videos and talking about the Incarnation so much every year. Because honestly, growing up, especially in like a Pentecostal evangelical environment, there were a lot of moments where I was expected to feel something beyond myself, talk to something beyond myself, hear something beyond myself, and feel and experience something beyond myself. And I often was the one in the room who had to say, I don't know, I'm not hearing anything, I'm not feeling anything. And constantly feeling so inadequate for feeling that way. And then I started to encounter this message of the Incarnation that talked about God being experienced through our own embodiment, through our own actions, through our own hands and feet in the world. And I could get that. I can grasp that. And through living out this message, loving the people around me, sharing with the people around me, helping people around me, taking care of people around me, aiding in other people's healing. That is how I've experienced God. So today, on this Christmas, may you experience God through your own body, through God becoming flesh within you. And may you embody God by living this truth out. Loving others, taking care of others, helping others, healing others, giving toward others. And may you experience God anew as you live that out. Thank you for watching. If you'd like to support me, check out Patreon, patreon.com/Damon Garcia. And I'll see you next year. Merry Christmas.